Hello, welcome to the first lecture of the course, Course Introduction and Fundamental Definitions. My name is Sagar Samtani and I will be your instructor for the course. This course is ISM 6328, Information Security and Risk Management, and the course duration is from the 20th of August all the way through the 12th of October. In this first lecture, we will be covering the introduction for the course, and you can find the textbook pages to be 1 through 25. Now, this is typically the type of agenda that I'll have for each lecture. At the start of each lecture, I will go over what we did in the last lecture and a chapter in review of what was actually covered in the previous lecture. This is to help build some continuity and get some flow in the course so that you can see how all of the lectures tie in together and how they build upon each other. Second, I'll get into what the lecture and chapter objectives are for this particular lecture and this particular chapter. Third, I'll get into what the actual lecture is, so we'll spend about 30 minutes in this part of the slides every time. And then I'll get into some review questions, and these review questions are really linked back to what I was hoping that you would learn from each chapter and each lecture. And they're also an excellent mechanism for you to also study for the quizzes that are associated with each chapter. So, like I mentioned, every lecture will start off with a review from the previous lecture or chapter. And since this is the first chapter, we'll just go ahead and jump right into content today. So what I'm hoping that you'll get out of this lecture today is that I'll provide an introduction of who I am and my background. I'll summarize the current demands for information security professionals and really summarize why InfoSec is a very appealing job for many individuals today and why it has become such a hot area. I'll summarize what are the key skills that are sought for information security professionals because they also have to have a certain skill set. And I'll provide a brief history of some of the key information security events. Then I'll get into one of the fundamental definitions of information security as well as one of the fundamental concepts, which is the CIA Triad. And no, CIA does not stand for Central Intelligence Agency. And we'll get into that a little bit later on in the lecture. And finally, I'll offer some suggestions for maintaining good cybersecurity hygiene. What can you do to protect yourself and also the people around you from cyber attack? So a little bit of an introduction. My name is Sagar Samtani. I'm a first-year assistant professor in the ISDS department, the Information Systems and Decision Sciences department. I graduated with my PhD in May of 2018. I graduated with my master's degree in 2014 and my bachelor's degree in 2013, all of them from the University of Arizona. And you can get a little bit more information about who I am and my background at my personal website, so feel free to browse those. I also served as a systems administrator in 2013 through 2014, and just going through the course survey, I know that some of you currently serve as systems administrators and so on, so I totally understand your job role, and I have a much appreciation for what you guys do. I'll also be summarizing for those who don't know what systems administration is, the value and role of systems administration in the next lecture and the role that that plays within the information security field. Now, in addition to teaching cybersecurity, I also do a significant amount of research in cybersecurity, specifically in the area of proactive cyber threat intelligence. I studied the online hacker community, and a lot of people refer to this as the dark web. And specifically, I use a variety of web, text, and data mining techniques, including deep learning and artificial intelligence approaches, to really identify who are the key hackers in the online hacker community or the dark web, and what kinds of emerging threats are coming out within these platforms. I also focus on large-scale vulnerability assessments, so using vulnerability scanning tools to identify the vulnerabilities of thousands of internet-connected devices, such as industrial control systems, consumer IoT devices like cameras and webcams and that type of thing. Now, in terms of teaching, I have taught cyber threat intelligence at the graduate level in the spring of 2017, the spring of 2018, and also summer 2018. And the summer 2018 course was taught in an online format, so I do have some experience in teaching in an online format. In terms of my teaching experience for the undergraduate level, I've taught Introduction to MIS, and that was in the summer of 2016. Now, even though I've taught 4 times in the past, this is my first time teaching this course, and I really want to make sure that everyone learns and has a fantastic student success experience, and everybody is doing the best that they can. So if you have any feedback or concerns or just want to chat, and especially if you're struggling, please be sure to contact me right away, or my TAs. But I'd prefer if you go ahead and contact me with any suggestions or any feedback or any sort of struggles you may be having. And the email is the best way to contact me. I'm usually very responsive via email. If I don't get back to you within that day, I will definitely get back to you the following day. So a little bit of a course overview. And this is pulled from the syllabus, and you can get the full details of what I'm covering here in the syllabus itself. The course textbook that we're going to be using is called Information Security and IT Risk Management, and it was written in 2014, and it was written by Manish Agrawal, who is currently serving as the department head in the ISDS department, Alex Campo, and Eric Pierce. It provides many excellent review questions, and these review questions can help you prepare for the quizzes. It also provides some excellent case examples for well-known cyber attacks. Now, some of these cyber attacks may be a little bit older. They may be from 2010 or 2004 or something like that. But they provide really excellent case examples in terms of what did the company do in that cyber attack, what actually happened, and how did they address those concerns. And those will help set the foundation for some of the more recent cyber attacks or case examples that we'll be looking at. It also provides additional help for the assignments, and the assignments, when you do go through the assignments, make sure you look at the assignments directly. Some of the questions from the assignments have been adapted from the textbook directly, but what you'll look at is the actual assignment itself. Some of the technologies that are listed in the book are a little bit out of date. So for example, in the first chapter, Secunia PSI is something that is referred to, but that software is out of date and it's no longer available. So you just refer to what's actually provided in the assignment itself. And the book also serves as a stepping stone and a reference for the course. So some of the concepts I'll be talking about in the lecture will be provided in more detail in the book. So you can get some more examples, and it'll provide additional details that are not necessarily provided in the lecture. So it's an excellent stepping stone and a reference for this course. Now, throughout the course, I will also be providing supplementary materials that will help you understand some of the concepts that I'm teaching in a little bit more depth. And overall, there are 14 chapters in the book. There are 5 major themes and skill sets that are taught. The first one is Basic Systems Administration, which is going to be chapters 2 and 3. Then there's Fundamental Cybersecurity Terminology, which we'll be covering a little bit today. And then also, again, in chapters 4 and 5. There's Controls and Access Management, Incident Response, Handling and Analysis, and Policies and Risk Management. And the reason why these are taught is because they are reverse engineered and backwards engineered from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and also the National Security Agency, NSA, from the key knowledge units that are required by them in order to maintain University of South Florida's Center of Academic Excellence for education in cybersecurity. So these have been very carefully backwards engineered from those requirements, from those key knowledge units, such that you can get a strong foundation so that you can pursue additional certifications in the future. Moreover, these skills will also set a solid foundation for you to pursue some of the other advanced courses within the Masters of Cybersecurity program, such as business disaster continuity recovery, forensics concentration, and any of the other concentrations. So it's really a baseline level skill set that any information security or cybersecurity professional must have if they wish to gain further education or if they wish to pursue a career in cybersecurity. So how can you be successful in this course? I know that many of you have been working in the cybersecurity field for a number of years already, and you may be taking this course because it can help you provide you an excellent stepping stone for the next stage in your career, and just want to be successful in the course. So what I would suggest doing is that carefully read each chapter, then watch the lecture videos, and the lecture videos will really provide the key points and explanations from the chapters. It also provides some more up-to-date references and so on. Converse with myself or any of the TAs if you have any course content questions. And then after you've done that, and also after you've talked with some of your classmates about the content, take the quiz and do the quiz independently, and you are responsible for all of the content in the chapter and the lecture. They will be tested accordingly. And the reason for this is that the quiz will really simulate the type of learning a cybersecurity professional must engage in. Just throughout my experience working in the discipline, I've noticed that if you're not able to have that type of knowledge or any type of knowledge and be able to articulate it very clearly in a very concise way in a timely fashion and on the spot, then many of the meetings that you'll be in with, say, top level executives may not go that well because you're working in a very time-sensitive type of environment. Now, after you've done the quiz, then carefully work on the assignment content and follow all of the directions that are provided in the assignment. My TAs and I have worked extremely hard to make sure that we have developed assignments that test your knowledge within the course content that we've developed. And they are critical thinking types of questions that relate to kind of your background, as well as some of the more recent and relevant types of events that are happening out in the world. So they've been carefully engineered. So please carefully follow all the directions in the assignments. And with the assignments, you can work with a partner, and that's totally fine. So why was this course designed this way? Why are these skills important? So there are 5 major themes that I talked about. I've designed the quizzes and the assignments in a certain way. Why is that the case? Well, there's been a massive demand in cybersecurity. So you can see some of these news clippings. And one that's particularly interesting is that in this particular jobs report, they say that there's going to be 3.5 million cybersecurity job openings by 2021. Now the issue is that even though there's going to be so many openings, there's not going to be enough people that are going to be fitting those openings. In fact, I've worked with a few people that they've told me, and these are employers that have told me, that we will hire anybody even if they know the word cybersecurity. That's how much demand there is within the field, that even if they know the word, they don't even have to know anything about cybersecurity. They will get a job accordingly. Now, we want to make sure that after you graduate from this program that you have a good set of skills, that you can know a little bit more than just the word for cybersecurity. You can actually go in and be able to define it, identify the roles, how it relates to a business, the different types of activities that are required, and really carve out a niche for yourself so that you can represent yourself as well as USF in a very positive manner, and also add significant amount of value to your employer currently, or also employers that you may have in the future. Some quick facts and statistics. I would suggest that you actually look at this interactive dashboard. Some of the jobs that you can get with cybersecurity, having a good cybersecurity background, say application security engineer, and the salary for this could be ranging from 100K to 210K, so significant amount of money. Network security analyst from 90K to 150K, IS security manager, and really IS security manager and also cybersecurity analyst are 2 of the jobs that you'll be specifically able to get after completing the entire Masters in Cybersecurity program that's offered at USF. And you can see that the salaries are extremely competitive, and there's many other jobs that are available within the field. So how can you actually get some of these skills? What are they actually looking for? What are the reason for these demand increases? There's a numerous amount of desired technical competencies, and some of them will be developed in this course. Others will be developed in subsequent courses that you'll be taking. So from a technical point of view, they're really looking for, do you have a good understanding of information systems? Do you know the different types of information systems that are out there, what are the assets that an organization may have, and so on. A good Linux background, so that's why we have a customized Linux virtual machine just for this course. Background in cryptography, Unix, and Cisco networking type of technologies. And you can see additional details right here. So for example, intermediate information security, so being able to install, configure, troubleshoot, maintain networks in a secure manner to ensure their CIA confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and so on. So you can see some of the skills that they're looking for: core operating systems, intermediate tech support, general database, auditing, testing, and those types of things. And those are some of the things that we'll be working on within this course. Now from a non-technical perspective, and this is why I've developed the course the way that I have with the quizzes and the assignments, is you really have to be a continuous learner. it's cybersecurity is not a field where it's like the post office, where really the job hasn't changed all that much in the last 50 or 100 years. Every 2 years within the cybersecurity discipline, there's a massive change. There's a massive amount of new technologies that have emerged, new types of threats that are coming out, and that type of thing. And for those reasons, you have to be a continuous learner, be very persistent, be curious and perceptive, be very cerebral and instinctive as well. And emotional right here doesn't really mean like emotional as in getting upset about things, but more so about getting emotional, emotional intelligence. Being able to manage yourself in a way that is very, very beneficial to an employer and so on. Having a well-rounded skill set, attention to detail, being able to think like a black hat, analytical. So are you able to identify the end users of security within your organization and so on. Many of your military veterans, that's very helpful as well. And then most importantly is really the willingness to continuously develop skills. And much of this will be really evaluated within the course. And the willingness to develop skills will also be taught within the course as well, where in some of the assignments, I'll ask you explicitly, how does this relate to your particular job or your interests and so on, and provide specific examples. Now, some of the common technical activities that security professionals do is they plan, implement, upgrade, and monitor technology. Now, even though they do a lot of this, what they spend the majority of their time doing is really researching new technologies. There's a lot of new technologies that are constantly emerging on a daily basis. And I can tell you just from my position as a cybersecurity professor, the majority of my time that I work on is I really try to understand exactly what I'm looking at. I do a lot of reading and I do a lot of writing, and that helps me in terms of identifying exactly which technologies I need to be working on. They also do things like incident response, which we'll get into, and they may ensure that appropriate security controls are in place to safeguard digital files and also vital critical electronic infrastructure, aka the assets that an organization may have. Non-technical perspective, research and read new technologies, internal and political issues, regulatory compliance, making sure that all of the policies and standards that are being developed are in line with what the organization has in mind and what their key goals are. Now, some of the cybersecurity employers also place great importance on relevant cybersecurity certifications. Some of the top five that are out there are the Certified Ethical Hacker, the Certified Information Security Manager, Security Plus, CISSP, which is actually one of the more popular ones, and then GSEC, which is from the SANS Institute, GIAC Security Essentials. And much of the course content will help set the foundation for pursuing one or more of these certifications. So now we've set a good foundation in terms of what this course is about and how it relates with the other courses that you'll be taking. And we've also motivated why cybersecurity is important. It's a massive demand for cybersecurity that's out there. There's a large amount of cyber attacks that are happening. They're well-paying jobs and that type of thing. But how did this actually come about? And we really need to look into the history of cybersecurity, of cyber attacks that have happened in the past, and really understand why that the field is the way it is right now. And more importantly, it's part of industry folklore. It's professional vocabulary. You have to know that these events actually occurred and what actually came out of them. So if we take a look back, the next two slides are going to be really about that, about the history. In 1981, TCP/IP was finalized, and that's when the internet was formed. And the internet really provided a mechanism for a lot of folks to start connecting with each other. And initially it was designed for military type of usage or educational type of usage where people would share information with each other, but it's grown significantly since then. And when the internet was formed, there was no mention of security. It was considered to be benign. And you can actually still see this with a lot of organizations today where they will not necessarily build their technologies with security in mind. They will build their technologies and then security is kind of an afterthought. So when the internet was formed, there was no real mention of security, and that was not really thought of all that well. And that was just not that long ago, actually, in 1981. 1982 to 1983, We can see that the gang of 414s, which were 6 teens from Milwaukee, broke into 60 high-profile computer systems. And this really introduced the term hacker. And we hear about hackers all the time now. But this was the event that actually introduced that particular term. And the U.S. Congress hearings on computer security, they came up with the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which was the first real legislation or law against hackers or malicious activities and so on. In 1988, there was the Morris worm, and Robert Morris Jr. developed a 99-line program to count the size of the internet. And what happened when he did this is that 10% of the internet crashed. Now, if you can imagine 10% of the internet these days, that would be a massive amount of websites and sites that would go down. Imagine if that 10% included Google. You know, that would be a significant issue. So this, to this day, is still the largest amount of internet that's been down at the same time. And it was also the first conviction under the 1986 Act. And so the CERT/CC was established at CMU. And this was, the Morris worm was really one of the first major cyber attacks that happened that leveraged the internet technologies. In 1995 and 1998, we saw the release of 2 operating systems, Windows 95 and Windows 98, that were released. Now, there was almost no security that was released by Microsoft in these operating systems. And in 98, there was the integration of internet capabilities. And what this really did with Windows is that it widely expanded computer ownership. So pretty much anybody could get their hands on a computer, and so the personal computing revolution began at this point. In 1996, we have HIPAA that came out, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and this is something that's actually going to be on the quiz. And its responsibility was maintaining the confidentiality of patient information within health organizations. And there was a push to move to EHR completely by 2014. In 2000, there was the I Love You virus that came out, which is a virus that was created by 2 Filipino college students that deleted images on affected computers. And it was traced immediately, and there was no filed charges. Now, if you were to do something like that today, there would definitely be filed charges against you. In 2002, it was in the wake of the Enron scandal, where the executives at Enron and the accountants that were there, they really were cooking the books, and they were falsifying a lot of their financial information. So what came out in 2002 was the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, and what it really focused on was making sure that executives were held accountable for their financial reporting, and it prevented the falsification of financial records. And so this affected pension investments. There was Section 404 that came out, and so on. In 2005 and 2007, through 2007, we saw some massive retail industry hacks. So there were millions of credit and debit cards stolen from TJ Maxx, BJ's, Office Max, and so on. And the ringleader for these attacks, Albert Gonzalez, was sentenced to over 20 years in prison for these activities. And the interesting thing is that this was really one of the first times that a large amount of stolen credit cards and debit cards were sold on specialized black markets, which is actually something that I study myself in my own research. What are the different types of cards that are stolen? What are the breakdowns? What banks do they come from, and so on? I know that many of you are interested or work for JP Morgan Chase or banks and so on. So feel free to reach out to me if you have interest in knowing a little bit more about the black markets for credit cards and debit cards and so on. In 2008, there was a war between Georgia, the country, not Georgia, the state, and Russia. And there were massive amounts of denial of service attacks within the country of Georgia, and many government websites were defaced. Now, in the past, what had happened was that there were hackers that were actually conducting these attacks, and they may be working by themselves. But in 2008, this was the first known activity of state-sponsored cyber warfare, meaning the government actually sponsored these types of attacks. And that's why you often hear that the next war that's going to be coming out is not going to be fought on the ground, but it's going to be fought in cyberspace. It's actually going to be fought online. It's because there's governments that are actually sponsoring people to execute cyber attacks against other organizations or other countries as a whole. And one of the more recent examples could be the election hacks in 2016, where Russia was accused of meddling in the U.S. elections. In 2009, the U.S. Cyber Command was established, and this was aimed to defend U.S. military networks and respond to cyberspace as necessary. And this was in response to the Joint Strike Fighter, where there was $300 billion lost, and terabytes of data was lost as well. And there were numerous U.S. vulnerabilities in the U.S. Electricity grid that were found as well, where if they were exploited, then electricity across, say, the eastern seaboard or across the entire country could be lost. In 2010, Operation Aurora happened, where there was attempts to steal the code base and access emails of the Chinese human rights activists. And the attacks were traced back to students in refining their skills in China. And Congress really announced their intention to investigate. 2011, the Sony PlayStation network was compromised, so 70 million subscribers on the network were, their credit card information was suspected to have been stolen. And there was significant downtime of the Sony PlayStation network. Now, I don't know how many of you are PlayStation fans. I'm personally an Xbox guy myself, but there were a significant amount of lack of video games that were played during the summertime if you're a PlayStation guy in 2011. In 2012, there was an event that happened where the number of personal/work mobile devices, so say for example your laptop or your tablet or your iPhone or your Android phone, exceeded the number of desktops that were out there. And what this meant was that there was a significant increase in the amount of mobile malware. So that means that there's more work for InfoSec professionals and more jobs that are being demanded for. And in 2013, the Mandiant report came out. This was one of the real seminal key pieces of cyber threat intelligence reports that existed. And this identified APT-1 unit of the Chinese army as a source of most cyber attacks against U.S. entities. And this further demonstrated state-sponsored industrial espionage. 2014 was labeled as the year of the cyber breach, and there were numerous retail and banking organizations that were breached, including Target and Chase. So what you can really see from this slide and the previous slide is that there were a number of activities that occurred in the 2000s, number of cyber attacks that were very novel, very interesting, and very new, that really spurred the development of the entire field and increased the amount of demand within the field in terms of the cybersecurity professionals that are out there that can help prevent against, say, mobile malware attacks or state-sponsored espionage and so on. So information security, cybersecurity is increasing criticality to individuals and organizations. And really, if we had to define it, information security is protecting information and information systems from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, disruption, modification, or destruction in order to provide confidentiality, integrity, and availability, CIA. And this definition right here will continuously be brought up in the quizzes and the assignments and so on. So you really have to know this definition inside and out. There's multiple aspects in this definition. Information systems, unauthorized access. So for example, if you've left your computer open and there's Facebook on it and your roommate goes in and starts accessing Facebook, technically that's a violation of security, and that person is a hacker. The unauthorized use, disclosure, disruption, modification, destruction. This could be as simple as spilling coffee on your laptop. That's a form of destruction, and that prevents the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your information. So the core part of this definition is CIA. And again, it's not Central Intelligence Agency, but it's confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And this is one of the fundamental definitions that you need to know. So the key definition here is a CIA Triad, which is CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is preserving authorized restrictions on access and disclosure, including means for protecting personal privacy and proprietary information. And we'll get into what each of these are in the following slides, and also, as well as examples. Integrity is guarding against improper information modification or destruction, and it includes ensuring information non-repudiation and authenticity. And availability is ensuring timely and reliable access to and use of information. So let's get into confidentiality first. Confidentiality is preserving authorized restrictions on access and disclosure, including means for protecting personal privacy and proprietary information. And confidentiality is the mechanism by which custodians of information maintain privacy of individual information. So it's an individual's right to privacy. It extends to personal information. I want to know that, say, my bank is not disclosing my information to other people that may not have the rights to access or view it. Similarly, it's also my right to confidentiality of, say, Facebook. Not that I have Facebook, but if I had a Facebook account, what kind of information are they sharing with other people? My ability to keep my information confidential from people that may not need to know it or not allowed to know it. And it's one of the most common interpretations of information security, but it's not the only aspect of information security. It's becoming more and more of a societal concern. So for example, if you can think about the GDPR that was passed earlier on this summer, making sure that privacy and the confidentiality of individuals is maintained is becoming more and more of a concern. Integrity is guarding against improper information modification or destruction and includes ensuring information non-repudiation and authenticity. It makes information actionable, i.e. it can be acted upon right away. And it's a huge focus of regulators. So if you can think about Sarbanes-Oxley and think about Enron, for example, they were cooking their books basically. The data that they had and the information that they were providing to the public was all cooked. It was all false. So the integrity of that was compromised. It was bad. Another example is, imagine that your bank account numbers were modified to be a lot lower, or in the worst situation, drained. Or if you can think about the exercises provided in assignment 1, modified images of your family vacation, steganography. So if you go in and start to modify the images that are provided within your directory or within other people's directories or computers, then that's going to be a significant issue, because that is the integrity that's being changed, or that's going to be being altered of your images, and you don't want that. You don't want your data to be, the integrity to be compromised in any way. So confidentiality is making sure that there's privacy and only the people that are allowed to access that information. Integrity is making sure that the quality of information is actually being maintained, that it's not being deleted or modified in any way, shape, or form, or destroyed. And availability is ensuring timely and reliable access to and use of information. So it's very important to end users. So, for example, imagine not being able to access Netflix on Saturday night, which could be your date night. This could have significant revenue implications in e-commerce systems. So if you think about, say, a denial of service attack, where a bunch of computers may be attacking a server and preventing that server from providing services to their customer base. So for example, a botnet hits Netflix, and Netflix is not able to provide videos for their end users. Well, the information may still be there, so the integrity is good. You know, they may be providing, making sure that the confidentiality of all the information is still there. You know, all of the customer information is maintained and that type of thing, but they're just not able to provide availability of their service. So from an e-commerce point of view, this could have significant issues where an organization may not be able to retain the trust of their customer base. Their customer base may not be able to rely on them in terms of getting access to the services that they want, and so on. And so because of this, many companies such as Google offer a 99.9998% uptime per year. But this uptime limit, even though it seems like a lot, actually, if you really calculate it, there would still be a few hours every year that the service is unavailable. And in those few hours, Google may lose millions of dollars because of their service not being available. So just to reiterate, confidentiality, making sure that your information is staying private and it's not being accessed by anybody else that's not supposed to be there, not supposed to be looking at it. It extends to your personal information. Integrity is making sure that your information is not modified, destroyed, or is inauthenticated in any way, shape, or form. And then availability is making sure that the system or the information that you have available is available to your end users and to those specific people that are allowed to view it. Now, how do you actually maintain this CIA triad for yourself? And CIA is something that we'll be going back to throughout the course. There's something called cybersecurity hygiene, and CIA is everyone's responsibility. So protect your cybersecurity hygiene. So don't ever say that it won't happen to me. You will get attacked in some way, shape, or form, or you may suffer a cyber attack in some facet. So for example, you may spill coffee on your laptop or something. Keep your software up to date. Avoid phishing scams. So be very suspicious of emails and phone calls. Practice good password management. I know that many of you are using the same password across multiple platforms. Don't do that. Use something like LastPass. And we'll get into, in chapter 4, we'll get into specific types of cybersecurity attacks that are out there and the different mechanisms that you could use to prevent them. Be careful what you click. Never leave devices unattended, yes, even in your family. Protect your sensitive data. Use your mobile devices safely. So for example, there's an opt-out on your mobile devices for certain apps of them collecting your data. Install antivirus protection, and there's a perception out there that Macs are not susceptible to viruses. That's not true. And be sure to back up your data. I know that many of you are not backing up your data. And Box is an online storage that is free and available to all USF students. So use that to your advantage to back up your data. Some of the other cybersecurity tips that we'll talk about throughout the class is using a firewall, using public wireless hotspots wisely, being conscientious of what you plug into your computer, being careful of what you share on social networking sites, monitoring your accounts for suspicious activity, banking or shopping online on trusted devices only, and keeping up to date on latest cybersecurity trends. So these are some of the review questions for this particular lecture. In this lecture, we really talked about what is information security and the different components of it. It really comes back down to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. And some of the strengths of pursuing information security as a career choice is that you're actually able to have a lot of security in your job, if that makes any sense, to avoid any irony. It's a very high-paying job. There's a lot of jobs that are out there. There's a significant amount of demand that's out there. And it's a very rewarding job as well. And some of the activities that information security professionals spend most of their time is specifically within researching and looking up new technologies that could help them better perform their job. Some of the most important skills that information security professionals are required to have in order to succeed in their job are the ability to continuously learn, have a very positive attitude, be able to learn things very quickly, those types of things. So we saw the list of the 10 things that are the most important skills for information security professionals to have from a non-technical perspective. From a technical perspective, being able to have some Linux skills as well as being able to install, update, maintain software on a network and so on is absolutely crucial. And we defined what information security is, and we also identified what the CIA Triad is: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And we also provided a violation of each of those aspects. So that's the end of lecture 1. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And there's also additional questions available and additional reading content available in the textbook on page 15 through 16. As always, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Thanks.